There, find out more about it as well, and be able to check out the menu. The new menu is going to drop right after the College World Series.
Crazy.
So it's the full menu.
Yeah. Hey, you know what's funny? People come up to me outside to my man. It's like, that's it? Is that the menu?
No, it's more coming.
I was like, I mean, it was good enough for me, but it's more coming. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a partial menu.
Yeah,
when the College World Series ends, the full menu would come out.
There you go.
You don't want to try to kill those people back in the kitchen in the first week.
I know, man, but you can't explain that to consumers.
I understand.
They want what they want.
College World Series Day 6. We had one game in the book. 2-2 tied going out of the 8th. First time in years that happened. 3-2 win by Florida tonight. Of course, big one, Wake Forest and LSU. As always, we're going to talk some boxing, and the best person to talk boxing anywhere in the state, Mr. Tony Boone, of course, longtime Omaha World Hair reporter, man who loves boxing like it is his one of your kids.
Yeah. When you texted and said we're going to talk boxing, literally wanted to set up camp outdoors and just wait for today.
You texted me right back. Yes. It wasn't like 100%. Waiting, because I wanted to make sure. I'm like, just making sure you're not. No, I'm good. Let's go. Let's do it.
How'd you get into it?
Well, I grew up as a boxing fan. I remember watching fights with my grandpa when I was a kid.
Give me some good ones with your grandpa. Like, who's the matchup?
Well, my grandpa actually, unfortunately, was gone before we got to the really good ones that I remember.
Sure,
I lost him, I think, at age 18.
But he had you.
But yes, I mean, I remember being 5 years old on his lap, and he was having me sip his beer and watching fights with him and his dad, my great grandfather, out on my great grandfather's farm way back in the day. And it's always kind of stuck with me. And so I remember watching all the big fights growing up, and just happenstance.
Yeah, for sure.
How old are you, Tony?
Right now, I'm 51.
Okay, so you're a little bit 3 years younger than me.
Yeah, right.
We were watching the biggest fights in the world on ABC.
Oh, yeah.
Norton's Fighting Holmes for the title on ABC, 7:30 at night. We weren't paying any money for it.
Dang.
If you had an antenna, you were good. I mean, stuff like that. That's why boxing was so big, because anybody could watch it.
Yeah, and then the era that followed that, like the early 90s and things like that, were when we started to go into HBO.
And pay-per-view
My first pay-per-view ever was Tyson Lewis.
Yeah.
Tyson really?
Lewis.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
that was the last day I had a drink.
Really?
That was my last drink.
Oh, congrats, man.
Hey, appreciate it. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
That was my last on that date. Isn't that like May 10th?
I don't remember.
May 10th, 2002, something like that.
Wow.
Anyway, but like even on Saturday afternoons, man, you were watching Sugar Ray Leonard fight Davey Boy. What was it? The guy with the things on his shoes, Davey Boy Smith or something like that, fighting that guy at 2:30 on ABC Wild World of Sports, watching the best fighter of the day fighting for free on your TV.
Yeah, then it became more of a Saturday night thing after that, which is how it led to pay-per-views and things like that. I mean, HBO, I thought, did a great job, and Showtime was always trying to rise up to meet it.
Yeah.
With their World Championship boxing on Saturday nights, and then even beyond that, when they started getting into the boxing after dark, where you got the really good matchups on weeks that weren't championship fight weeks.
And then Legendary Nights, that series.
Yeah,
that's still amazing.
Yeah, you got to thank Floyd for Showtime, because once things didn't work out from what I read on HBO, he left.
Yeah.
And then everything went to follow.
Now, that's how he kind of started doing his own thing, and that's kind of what raised Showtime to the next level. And I think that all of us that love the sport will forever not get over the day that HBO left the boxing.
I know, it was
really changed.
Because I still anticipate a Michael Buffer announcement.
And for today's fan, there are fights everywhere. You can find them. The problem is, although there are more of them to be seen, you actually have to work to see them.
Yeah, I got a question on a string of account of that. What you think about these celebrity boxing matches? Personally, I love boxing as a fan, so like I feel like I want to watch a fight. But what do you think, as a boxing expert, about the KSI versus the Instagrammer, or
like the Jake Paul kind of thing?
Yeah. Not even Jake Paul, because he actually it's the closest thing to.
You mean actual celebrities fight each other?
Everybody fighting them.
Gotcha, right?
Like, what do you think about stuff like that?
I hate it.
Okay.
Yeah, I figure. Yeah.
Boxing isn't a game.
There you go.
Yeah,
you don't play. You don't play boxing.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
There you go.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think that we're one bad thing happening away from a lot of that going away. And
Yeah.
I probably have been fortunate that it hasn't happened to this point.
Yeah.
But I do like the fact that if it's something like that that brings a non-boxing fan into it, and that guy watches because a YouTube guy fought,
right,
and then suddenly like, oh, there are levels to this sport, and you get to watching a Crawford Spence fight, which we're going to talk about here,
right,
then I'm all for it. If that's what it takes to get you in the door, then 100% can be on board with it. Personally, not going to watch it. I'm also a guy that doesn't watch a lot of MMA stuff because for me, it's like almost like organized street violence. We're going to put street violence, but we're going to put it in the cage,
like organized chaos.
Yeah, exactly.
I started watching MMA more recently. You know when I watched the most of it during the pandemic because it was the only thing going on. I started watching and learning the names, and I get what you're saying. I want to go back real quick to Showtime and HBO. So living in Albuquerque, Johnny Tapia was our big fighter, and Danny Romero, right? Both those guys were Showtime guys. And so we had Bobby Ches come in, and we had the Fight Doctor come in, and they were actually good. It was a good broadcast, but it never had the feeling of HBO. It didn't have that cachet. It was almost like they were on, no offense to anybody, but FS1 compared to ESPN. That's kind of how it felt. Yeah. But it was still cool to have them come down.
I used to like FS1 because of Shannon Sharp.
Oh, okay.
Skip.
Now he's gone now.
Now he's gone.
Yeah.
But that fight in particular kind of shows you what boxing can become if an event gets big enough. That for Albuquerque is the end all be all. Like it's kind of like Omaha in a sense that it never really had, like, although there were always fighters from Albuquerque, you never had that guy, and they had two of that guy at roughly the same time to where you can make this huge matchup where everybody was either in Camp Tapia or on Team Romero.
Oh, definitely.
And it made for just a spectacular event. And I agree with you what you're saying there. Although I will say this, Showtime has done a good job of bringing in, I'm not a big Morrow fan necessarily, but they've done a good job of bringing in guys that do fights where you feel like it's like next level.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Huge. I mean, go back to him even doing like Rocky IV.
Yes.
You know, when you bring in a guy like that to be your play-by-play guy, and again, he's not their main play-by-play guy. Yeah. But at this stage of his career, it's amazing to have him part of it. And Al Bernstein has been doing stuff forever. So when that's your crew, I can totally get on board with that. And I'm a big Steve Farhood guy too. Former editor of Ring Magazine. He's been there like Jim Gray, not so much the interview guy, but more the analysis guy and things like that. He does their unofficial scoring all the time. One of the greatest days of my entire working career to this point was when Crawford would have fought on the undercard of this, when they had this random Showtime fight out in Grand Island, and they sold the place out. They just needed a venue or whatever. And
that's when he had dreads.
Singles. He did. Yeah.
Was that where the Danger play? That place in Grand Island?
Not dreads. Singles.
Yes. It was the Heartland Event Center. I think that's what it was called then. Maybe
I watched basketball there.
Yeah. So they come out there for that, and we're there the day before for the interview process and the weigh-ins and things like that. So I meet Steve Farhood, and he starts asking me about the history of boxing in Nebraska. So I give him like a quick 3-minute synopsis or whatever. And Steve Farhood, no doubt, looks at me and goes, every time you go somewhere new, there's always that one guy you need to meet. Yeah. You are that guy.
You're that guy.
Yeah. Before we even
Steve Farhood told me I was that guy.
You're that guy.
Yeah. Game over.
Yeah.
Didn't need to hear anything else.
What do you think about I got a few what do you think about questions.
Go ahead.
First of all, what do you think about Jake Paul? Like, as far as like a legit boxer, I know I'm not talking skill.
He's about to get knocked out.
I feel like
I know that he's about to get knocked out.
I feel like he's like got a long way to go to actually be like where like he feel like he can be in his mind. But do you respect him as a legit boxer? I mean, aside from like box office and all that type of stuff.
No. Yeah. And the reason is because it's easy when you're doing the Mayweather type thing where you control all the variables. I'll fight you this amount of rounds and at this weight,
size gloves.
Yes. Yep. And when you have all the variables that you can control,
right,
it's different than when everything is equal and you're playing in the real man sport.
Yeah.
And I'm with you, Michael. We're coming to the point where he's going to bite off more than he can chew.
Yeah.
And he's going to get starched one of these days. And I'm curious as to what's it going to be for a guy like him who made everything outside of this, and this became his thing after that.
Yeah. Right.
When you really have to dig deep after that, are you going to have the willingness to want to go back into the gym? He'll get my respect if he gets off the mat that night and wants to come back and do it again at that level again.
Even great fighters, that one knockout Roy Jones obviously can change your whole career. You never are the same after getting that one knockout. So I think it's coming. So obviously Tony's here to talk about Spence and Crawford.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
July 29th. We're gonna talk a lot about that, but you go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure because when we talked about that, I want to dive into that.
Okay, we will.
I just want to make. These are just a few I feel like questions that like people be thinking. I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Like we got it's 4-belt era now, right? Is it too many belts?
Oh yeah,
and then even a fifth because you can go with the ring title.
The ring, the
ring title
fight
too.
Will have
everything.
What's the ring magazine belt?
Okay, so the ring magazine belt was a way to kind of. Well, first of all, they've been doing this since back in the 20s.
Yeah, it's the linear title,
yes,
right?
It was basically we are going to give a belt to the guy who is the lineal champion.
Yeah.
The guy that beats the guy that beats the guy that beats the guy, which is great when in a day when everybody stayed in one weight class all the time.
Sure.
Then you can just have the one champion.
So lineal is not like take some time off, but you were the champion when you left and come back and you were.
You can, as long as they didn't put somebody else in as the champion in your absence.
Oh, like Tyson Fury.
Yes.
Okay. I'll show you.
Yeah. So they could still call him the lineal champion because he's the guy that beat the guy before. But he never lost that in the ring.
Gotcha.
But if you're away long enough, they will maybe establish it. And the ring actually has a pretty good criteria.
Yeah.
I think their criteria for naming a new one would be like in Crawford's case. He was the lineal guy at 140. And he also was unified, had every belt.
Yes.
Undisputed. No doubts about it. But he moved to another division.
Right.
How long are you going to let that be vacant before you do it?
You got to give it up.
Yeah.
Sure.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, it's not even necessarily Crawford giving it up. It's Ring determining it's time for us to have a new.
Yeah. No, that's what I meant.
It's time. It's been long enough. He's not coming back to 140.
Right.
It's time to move on.
But
their criteria usually is you have to be one of what they consider the top 3 guys in the division.
Right.
If it's a 1 versus 3 or a 2 versus 3 and one's like out of the mix because of an injury or just time off or whatever, then at least they have some criteria for it. It can't just be randomly thrown out there. They will not just give that away.
Right.
So that's what I've always liked about that. And you basically have to lose it to lose it unless you're away for a really long time. And that's why a lot of the guys in the sport itself, they would rather be that than any of the alphabet titles.
Sure.
The WBO,
yes, because that
WBC.
signifies that you are the man.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing with the 4-belt,
IBF.
the interesting thing with the 4-belt era, as before it was 3, the WBO came around, I think, like the late 80s, and really wasn't taken seriously until like a really named guy got it. Okay, now it can be a big deal because that's the guy that has the WBO.
Green belt is the WBC.
WBC.
That's my favorite belt.
Yeah. It's the one that probably has the most history to it, and why it's the one that everybody kind of chases if a guy were to pick which one it is. And in some cases, it's kind of who you fight for and with and what you're aligned to and everything like that. In the case of Terence Crawford, and we'll be talking about him here in a little bit, for him, the route was the WBO because that was the way in because Top Rank already had a fighter that he could match up with it. And once you got there, the WBO works differently. And that's the thing with the sanctioning bodies. Like the 4-belt era makes it hard for everybody because each of those individual bodies has their own set of rules.
Yes.
The WBO has a nice one, and this has helped Crawford out. That if you're the champion in one division, if you choose to move up to the next division, then you move the front of the line ahead of every contender of that.
That's a good rule, though.
So yes, so Crawford.
Is that how you get Jeff Horn?
Huh? Yes, that's how he got Jeff Horn. He went straight from 140 to 147. His very next fight, he was fighting for a title.
There you go.
And in a sense, he did that at 135 to 140 too,
because of the sanction.
Yeah,
and that sanction goes all the way down to each class.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So
that's what's up.
But it's the only one that does it that way.
So that was the right fight for him.
Yes,
100%.
Strategically
smart.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
The only thing that Crawford could be, I guess, criticized for it all, for that move in particular, for the Jeff Horn fight. And again, as we kind of talk about the history of this leading up to this fight, we can talk about this decision.
Right.
But him moving up then. The Horn fight was going to be immediate whenever he went to do it. He was the 140 champion. He could have got that fight at 147 whenever.
Right.
It was the thinking beyond that, considering how long it's taken now for Crawford Spence to happen. I think you can look back and say
because he was a Top Rank.
Yes.
Right.
He could have easily stayed at 140 and been like the Bernard Hopkins of that division, where he just like cleared out a weight class and was the man for like a long time.
Gotcha.
There was no problem with him making the weight.
Well, that's a question. And actually, Phil and I were talking about that before we came in here. I had no idea how hard it actually was for him to make 140 for that last fight against Julius.
That takes
Indongo
years
down
off your
Lincoln.
life doing that stuff.
And if that was the case, then 100% you have to do it.
Then you have to move up.
Right.
Yeah. So you're kind of again, Tony Boone joining us here, Josh Jones, Michael Severe, Let It Fly show. a historian of his career, right? You've been following him all the way back to Golden Gloves.
Yeah. Okay.
Terence Crawford.
So my first encounter with Crawford would have been when he was a teenager. He was, I think, at Blackburn.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay.
Right at the moment, and he ended up going to Bryan right after that.
Yep.
And if I remember Bud telling me the story right,
that was the alternative school, Blackburn.
He was in Blackburn because he got a fight in school. Not one that he started. One he certainly finished.
Very true.
One he certainly finished.
Very true.
Yeah.
So anyway, then he went to Bryan, but you know, around the local gyms, he already had a name for himself.
He did.
All the guys who were pros at the time were already talking about like
his potential.
Yes. Oh, off the hook. This is going to be our guy.
Right.
And to for me, that made it easy for me to sell outside of that. And even that night that we were talking about out in Grand Island.
Yeah.
When Steve Farhood was asking me about things like that, I pointed at Terence Crawford.
Right.
And he was fighting on the undercard, and he fought a guy that they had on Showbox before, so they knew the guy he was fighting.
Right.
And Bud starched him in the first round. It was a 6-foot guy. It was a great knockout. Because when the tall guy falls, it's kind
timber.
of an epic.
It's like Spud Webb winning the dunk contest.
One of the best finishes ever was when Sergio Martinez knocked out Paul Williams, because Paul Williams was freakishly tall and long.
Right.
And it was like timber.
It was like Diego Garcia getting knocked out.
That's why I was so surprised that Fundora got knocked out. Yeah, I mean, he's an excellent fighter, you know, but for him to be so tall and get caught like that, it looks so much more better.
Thing is, that sport, anybody can get caught at any point.
Yep.
So back to the fight in Grand Island, I tell Farhood that if there's anyone you need to see on the card, that's the guy.
Right.
And so Crawford does that on Saturday night. Steve Farhood got up at ringside, walked back to the table I'm sitting at, taps the table and goes, "Your guy's pretty damn good."
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So he knew then that there was something special about him. And I honestly thought that conversation between Steve Farhood and I, and him seeing that, was going to be the launching point for Crawford.
There you go.
I thought that this is going to be it. Showtime's going to be interested now. It's going to be not long before we see Crawford on Showbox.
Right.
And then for whatever reason, nothing really developed in the next year or two.
Yeah.
Right.
And then he ended up signing with a smaller promotional company that I think ended up getting, bought out by Top Rank as it was going out of business. And Bob Arum likes to try to retroactively retell history, go back and kind of, we knew what we had with Crawford. Yeah. They had no idea what they had in Crawford until the Brady Express.
I want to ask you about that.
No idea.
So how much of it would you say is on Top Rank being having no idea what they had, even though he was winning, and pushing him versus him pushing promoting himself?
As far as to get to this level, the Spence fight, or
just in general.
I think Top Rank in general is probably one of the best, if not the best, companies to build a fighter. Yeah, I had no problem with Crawford being with Top Rank ever, because I felt like that was a place that was going to develop him.
And they paid
now I don't know what the interactions were between Crawford and the Top Rank crew, and I know that there was even a lawsuit about that. Later on.
I feel like he shouldn't have to change who he is, to be promoted.
So I don't know what all happened behind the scenes in some of those things, but I felt like they were always going to push their next guy. And once they knew Terence was that guy, I don't think that they did a terrible job in pushing him. The problem wasn't until they got to 147, where all the big fights,
too late.
All the big fights,
they owned everything.
The big fights were with guys who were already aligned with somebody else.
So do you think that's more so the kind of, from your opinion, do you think that's the more of the connotation between when people say, "Oh, Bud hasn't fought anybody"? Do you think it's because PBC has all the marquee names, and he's just taking the best circumstances in front of him? That's why it seems like that.
I want to crawl in the ring myself with everybody that says he hasn't fought anybody, because they don't understand that he probably, in almost all cases, either fought the guy he had to fight, or the best guy that was available for him to fight because of ties to other promoters.
He's so good that he just make it look so easy.
That's the thing. Go back and look at the amount. We talked about this a bunch of times. The amount of rounds he's lost.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Go back since Gamboa. Look at the amount of rounds he's lost, and then tell me. I don't care who you're fighting. If you are winning 10 out of every 12 rounds that you're fighting, or 11 out of 12, you are a great fighter. No matter who you're fighting. And when you're fighting the number one contended guy that you have to fight, you're obviously a good fighter.
If things go Crawford's way next month, we will have a revisionist history of everybody's opinion of Crawford's career.
For sure.
Yeah.
Especially if he beats Spence in a dominating fashion.
Yeah.
Then people are going to go back and start looking at that and like, wow, how many rounds has this guy lost? How many times did you feel like he wasn't in control of the fight?
Right.
Because I can't think of a single fight where I felt after like the third or fourth round where he wasn't in complete control.
Yeah.
Now, it's not like something didn't happen during a later round of like, oh, hey, got caught with a shot or something like that.
I mean, that's boxing, bro.
Yeah, that happens. Yeah. But you felt like it was going the way Crawford wanted it to go from once he got established, and he's always one of those guys, let me take a round or two to figure you out, and then I'll start implementing my strategy and how I'm going to counter that.
Right.
And that's the thing about him that is going to be unmatched for this era. Is the ability to adapt within a fight in the ring.
So
that's unteachable. And I've always said, for anybody that asked, and this has never been an issue for him. And at this point, I think it's different now because the guys have different experience in the corner. My question is, somebody said, what's Crawford's weakness? I said, what's going to happen when he has to look to his corner for an answer and those guys don't have it because they haven't been at this level before.
Right.
Because he's stuck with his same team.
Yeah.
And those dudes are great guys. They just haven't been in world championship fights before.
I think it's
But now they have. They have been with guys other than Crawford in championship fights.
Yeah.
It's different now. Now we still never got to that point where he's had to look back to somebody else for an answer.
Right.
But those guys, I think, are more equipped now than what they were when they first reached that
Before we get to this fight, I want to go back to that night that really, at least in Nebraska, put him kind of on the map. It's the British Prescott fight where he's fighting on the undercard. He has to move up and fight it, dominates it. And I think that moment, at least here in Omaha, people who weren't fans or didn't know Terence, made him all of a sudden a name. Can you talk about that night?
Sure. Just to kind of set that up. Terence got to the finals of the Golden Gloves here in Omaha in 2006. He never really was that interested in being an Olympic guy. There were a lot of guys that were pushing him like, hey, the Olympic trials, they're coming up in 2008. And he's at that age where, he's like 18 or 19 and the pro game is an option now.
Right.
But there's also this other carrot that people can dangle in front of you because if you go and do well in the Olympics, there's a big contract waiting for you. And if he does that, then the waiting period he went through doesn't happen. And honestly, if Terence did what he did and he was from somewhere other than Omaha, if he was from Albuquerque, even where they had established guys before,
or Philadelphia, New York,
well, those places for sure.
Definitely,
but even places that have produced a guy before, that would happen. The problem is there hasn't been that from Omaha.
Right.
So there's always going to be that, Midwest fighter, whatever, that kind of thing.
Right.
So I think that was always going to go against him. But at least locally, everybody got to see him here in the Golden Gloves.
Right.
And he got to the finals. So at least the name Terence Crawford had entered their thing.
Yes, right.
Now, flash forward to the Prescott fight. Crawford has been away, fighting on the road everywhere. Hasn't fought in Omaha in a long, long time. Certainly never as a pro anywhere near here.
Right.
And the guy who is supposed to fight in the co-main event against Bradis Prescott got hurt.
Yeah.
Crawford was supposed to fight at 135 pounds, which is the weight class he was in at the time.
Yep.
On the untelevised undercard. The first two fights were on HBO, the top two.
Yep.
His was down here.
Yeah.
And they needed a guy at the last second. And so Top Rank came to Crawford and said, we need someone to fight Bradis Prescott. And Bradis Prescott came out of nowhere. He made a name for himself because he fought Amir Khan, who was a big prospect, maybe the top prospect in the sport, and caught him with a big shot early and knocked him out in 54 seconds.
Yep.
So Prescott had this, reputation as this huge puncher. And they offered Crawford, do you want to go fight Prescott on absolutely no notice?
Yeah.
A weight class higher than where you're at.
Right.
Yeah. And he'd never fought more than, I think, 8 rounds before that. Obviously hadn't fought somebody of that caliber. Yeah.
There are a lot of step up things there.
Right.
But as all of us who have, come across Terence know, he's a competitor.
Yes.
And would love the challenge. And so there was not a question for him. Absolutely. Right. He was going to take that fight.
So you think that was the fight that actually got everybody to see Terence?
Because it launched his career.
It launched his career because it was on television and because Prescott had such a name for himself and such a reputation as his puncher.
Yeah.
And what Crawford did that night changed also the way he fights for the rest of his career because, the strategy going in was stay away from Prescott's right hand, which makes sense to anybody that knows anything about the game. Absolutely. And so what he did was circled away from the right hand the entire night.
Yeah.
And early in the fight, switched to southpaw because he could see it coming.
Yeah, so that was just off film.
Yes.
I mean, he had
and
it
if
in
you
his
watch
bag,
if you watch Terence as a southpaw in that fight, you can tell this is something he's comfortable doing, but he's never really done it like this before.
Yeah.
And if you watch him now, if you look at
seamless.
BoxRec, it says he's a southpaw. He's
Yeah.
not.
And he's not, right?
He's not at
Especially
all.
when we
He'll
play
start a lot of
basketball.
fights. He starts a lot of fights as
Yes.
southpaw, so
Yes.
that's why they put it down there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but he's not.
Yep.
Yeah.
And for that matter, like Oscar De La Hoya was a southpaw and far right-handed the whole
Right.
time. So there are guys that do that.
Sure.
Man.
But he that night established himself, and after that, he has really perfected the craft.
Yeah.
To the point, and I think that's what we need to talk about when we get to the Spence fight: is how do you fight this
That's
fight when
10
Spence is
that's-
a southpaw?
10 years ago, so a decade basically.
Man.
He's been working.
Yeah.
He unified one belt, a one-weight class. Been fighter of the year. He's going to be a Hall of Famer because of what he's done.
Regardless.
But this fight, and we always joke about where they have Terence ranked in the Omaha World Herald top 100 athletes from Nebraska. This fight, though, I know.
That's me in a battle royal where
Yeah.
you put somebody else in the ring with me, then you put somebody else in the ring with me. Because that's a fight.
But the thing is, I feel about even those conversations, like, and I say this as a former athlete myself, I just kind of feel like it's too much. Like, it's almost like the Wilt Chamberlain conversations. It's like these modern day individuals are so special and so great, but you're trying to pay homage to the people of the past.
Yeah, but
I get it.
In this situation, though, like if he does this, he automatically goes. He could be considered one of the greatest boxers of all time.
Oh yeah.
You win this, all of a sudden you make a conversation of 5 or 6 guys.
Yeah.
This is Sugar Ray Robinson kind of stuff to do this.
I feel like he'll be top 10 if he does this, but he'll be top 5 all time if he goes after Charlo and beat him too.
You're talking about boxing
of all time.
In boxing in general. Which I was talking about,
So, no, he's too far up on the list already in the Omaha greats.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I felt like that when you're starting to do that. And this was the argument I had when they did that last list at the World Herald, which also happened to do.
And who created that list?
Okay, so it started in I think 05.
The first
original list.
Yep.
And we were all a part of it when it got 10 years old. So it was 2015 when we did the second one.
Okay.
Now, at that point, Crawford was the reigning fighter of the year. Had already won a belt in one weight class and become the lineal guy at 135 and had won one at 140.
Right.
So he had like
he had a resume.
in the bag.
Right.
Yeah, they were already in the bag.
Right.
And I felt like when we were having that discussion, there weren't many people that understood this is what he's already done. And if he does nothing else,
it's
significant.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's
win or
significant.
lose at this fight, he still already should be up.
Now we're accomplishments down the road, and we're talking like next level stuff. He doesn't have to fight another fight. He's in the Boxing Hall of Fame already.
Definitely, he's already
and he's been and it's been there for a while.
There's criteria for that. It's not like objective. It's a subjective thing.
When we go back to the Prescott fight, once everybody kind of knew who he was, that's the night that Top Rank also said, all right, we have something here.
How? What do you mean you have something? It's so busy on Lomachenko.
The next couple of fights, were like showcase fights. Let's put him in against a ranked guy. Let's let him look really good and get him to the world title fight. And this will always be something I'll look back on and laugh about.
Yeah.
Because I remember having converstions when we were at the World Herald with Thad Livingston, who was our sports editor.
Yeah.
Thad, my guy.
And so Thad would be like, we haven't really had a boxing budget to date. Like, you let me know if you need to go to these things or whatever.
Right.
Now I knew whenever he fought for a title, like we're talking like Vegas or New York.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's going to be an expense that they're not expecting.
Right.
So I said, these next couple of fights are going to be kind of showcase fights.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't need to go to Orlando and Dallas if that means that we're going to get the yes when we go to New York and Vegas.
Yeah.
So what happens when Crawford gets a shot at the title? He fights Ricky Burns in Scotland.
Oh, right.
So I walk into Thad's office and he's like, dude, we're not going to go to Scotland.
Right.
Yeah. Watching that at Brewski's, man. So that place was rocking.
I watched it.
We were watching it at Brewski's. It was rocking.
So let me ask you this as we transition into the
Spence fight.
It's not even mega fight. It's not even a word. It's like the fight of the decade.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Errol Spence Jr. Mm-hmm. What makes him great? Why is he who he is? And why has he got as far as he's gotten now?
Well, I think that he's managed his career well and has been a guy who was born into this weight class. Like, this is where he needed to be. He didn't.
Naturally.
So he was not Terence starting at 135, skinny.
Yeah.
Can't really pack on any muscle because you're going to miss the weight class. Like, okay, we can build you a little bit now. We have 5 extra pounds to work with.
Right.
And now obviously he's full-fledged welterweight.
For sure.
Yeah. Like for Spence, it's been. Usually when you go into boxing, they want you to cut to what's the what's the lowest weight you can get to where you're still yourself. You
Yeah.
don't want to go too far down
to
where you drain yourself to where you can't make it. Spence has always been at this weight class. So I think that's been a part of it. He's always been a big welterweight.
Yeah.
Like he maxes out what he has at 147. He's also very polished, very skilled. He was good in the amateurs. He was an Olympian for us. He didn't win a medal or anything. I think he got to the quarterfinals, but then lost his fight, but still had that kind of thing going for him. And that allowed him to kind of has his pro career as a former Olympian can kind of be set up differently than a guy from Omaha that nobody really knows about. So he was taken care of. And because of who he aligned himself with, the big fights were always there. And as we talk about this fight, coming up, that's the big difference between he and Crawford is that Spence.
That's the illusion.
Yes, Spence has had a lot of fights that he could take, whereas Terence has always had to be like, okay, who's the best guy I have available? We're talking at 147 now. Who's the best guy I have available because I can't fight those other guys.
So ahead of skill, like aside from skill, like the selection of fighters, is that any advantage for this type of fight? For
and they fought similar. They fought the same people before.
In this case, they have. And I think that it's probably not fair to compare them as much because the guy that Spence fought may not be the same guy that Crawford fought.
Right at the same time.
Yes, because of
I got you.
Yeah. Spence probably fought like say a Sean Porter. Or even a Kell Brook.
Yeah.
When those guys were closer to the prime of their career, whereas Crawford got them after that. And
which is not his fault.
Yes, not at all. Not at all. Right. But he did what he should have done. He took care of them in an easier fashion than what Spence did.
Right.
And I'm not saying those guys were bad fighters when Crawford got to them. I think that a lot of guys that fight Bud end up not being the same guy after they fight.
Definitely.
Right.
Definitely.
Because he doesn't knock you out with one shot, although he did in his last fight here in Omaha.
Yeah.
That's not who he is.
Right.
He breaks you down over time, and that takes its toll fight after fight after
Let's
fight.
get to this. So what happens?
What happens in the fight? I think the most interesting thing, first of all, is how does Crawford choose to fight it? Because Spence is a southpaw.
There you go.
And he is elected to fight as a southpaw himself a lot, here in the last few years, and has really perfected it.
Yeah.
But are you perfect when you're fighting a guy who's naturally probably a little bit bigger guy than you in what is probably your second best style?
Yeah. Can Bud, can he start off slow?
I think he does anyway.
Yeah. And they have equal reach too, which is not normal. Usually Bud beats everybody else in reach.
And that's the thing. Crawford is so physically gifted in just the sense like his body makeup. He has extremely big hands and extremely long arms for a guy his size.
Yeah.
Sure. That's all in great balance. And that's all part of what's made him what he is.
Right.
But that's the thing. Spence is going to be a little taller, a little bigger. Crawford is not going to be bothered by those things. He's fought that before.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to how he starts out, and I think Spence's best chance to win is to somehow get ahead on the cards early.
Yeah, I mean, that's even the odds. You look at the odds, the way they're set up. It's a sign for Spence to win by decision. It's a sign for Bud to stop him, just by the way the odds work. So
let me ask this one question. I know we're trying to wrap.
This
is big. They're going to have to wait.
That's cool.
They're going to have to wait. This is big. This is the biggest fight in the world. I don't want to leave no.
I completely agree.
Yeah. So my question is this. If you were to predict Bud to win by a knockout, what type of punch gets Spence? Like, what's Spence's weakness?
Ooh, I don't know that there is a shot.
It's gonna be a check hook.
I think it'd be accumulation of shots because that's kind of what
I feel like
Bud
sometimes
does.
he drops his head or drops his head when he throws.
Yeah, and I could see something where it's a combination where a big shot lands an uppercut or something like that. And I think that it's one of those things where it's going to be overtime. Yeah. I think the later the fight goes, the more it's going to start to favor Crawford. He's a much stronger fighter at the end than what Spence is. And not that Spence is necessarily a front runner, but he's been able to coast at the end of a lot of fights. Mm-hmm. And Terence has been taking guys out in the 9th, 10th, 12th rounds.
He's been money.
I know, man.
That between 8 and 10 has been money.
And Michael and I were talking about this before we started recording. Like, we were looking back to last time a guy went 12 with Crawford was Victor Postol, and that was his first unification fight out in Vegas at 140 pounds. Right. And he had 2 knockdowns in the bag. And I think at that point, the risk wasn't worth the reward for the knockout at that point.
Right.
So Bud kind of clowned him in the 12th round and, went the distance and got the win and got out of there with 2 belts for the first time. Crawford now probably doesn't get to the 12th, and he certainly would have gone after, Postol scalp in that 12th round now.
Yeah.
Then.
Like he did against Benavidez, I believe.
Yes. But there's a little bit different in that fight just because those guys legitimately hated each other.
Right.
So I think there's
he wanted to finish it for sure.
And that's another thing with this fight coming up too, is I don't know that Crawford and Spence legitimately hate each other.
No.
But I do know that Crawford has probably a chip sitting so high on his shoulder because he's had to wait this long for this.
Right.
That Spence will rue the day that he's had to,
Exactly. He's just a man in front of him.
Yeah.
So just so happened.
Let's be clear. Crawford is fighting Spence because he wants to fight Spence and wants the belt. Spence is fighting Crawford because his career cannot move forward if he leaves this fight behind. He has fought everybody else that he could to avoid this fight.
Right.
There's nowhere else he can go.
Tony, we appreciate it, man.
Yeah, you bet.
We
Always great.
Off camera,
and we'll get you back in. Maybe come in after.
Yes,
that'd be awesome. Break it down.
Yeah, or come back again, your own segment, man.
Yeah, no doubt. Tony Boone, of course. What did you say? The guy that does nothing else but watch boxing?
Yeah. Yes.
And of course, former Omaha World Herald employee as well. A couple of stats about it before we get John Barry in here. $667 is your basic price to get in the building.
Yep.
None of those left. And then you have your highest price ticket is $21,686.
Seat at my house, man. Come over my house.
Here's your betting odds. Errol Spence right now is an underdog. Okay, and he's right at plus 100.
Right.
The favorite is minus 128 for Terence Crawford. Crawford is a plus 360 knockout. Spence is plus 550 for the knockout.
Yeah.
So, appreciate it, Tony.
Yeah, you bet.
Yep. We're going to bring in John.
Whenever he
comes in. He's going to come in. We'll throw him in there. Oh, by the way, draw.
Yeah.
In case you want to throw some money just for it. 1600 plus 1600.
Yeah.
So throw $10 on it.
Okay.
$160.
Why not?
You could do it. Yeah, no doubt it.
Right.
Yeah. Coming up, we're going to talk with John Barry Jr. from Barry Law,
Yeah.
Who's been involved with helping so many veterans over the years, whether it is what he did with Creighton games or what he has done with the Ruck Pack thing they have where they're raising money for people who are veterans who are struggling with possible suicide.
Yeah.
So we'll get in all of that with him as well when he comes in. John, you come over here. Come on over here. This side. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, gotcha. We appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, thank you.
You are a sharp-dressed brother. That's what you are. Look at this.
Yeah,
He clean or what?
Yeah.
He's so clean. So clean.
I give you a 9.
What I got you to get a 10.
No, I'm just playing. I'm playing.
You get a Kango or something for a 10.
No, it look nice.
What's your relationship history-wise with the CWS? Always been a fan? What do you think about the CWS?
So my dad went to Stanford, right? So Stanford used to play in the CWS. We'd go out to Rosenblatt, and it was a big deal when I was a kid. We'd go out, almost every year and cheer for the Stanford Cardinal.
Yeah.
When they made it.
Did you want to go to Stanford as a player when you was a kid?
I either wanted to go East or West Coast.
Okay.
Now my youngest brother did go to Stanford.
Yeah.
But,
man, that's sweet.
Yeah, but I went to William and Mary. I loved
East Coast. That's great school.
Yeah.
But man, if I was smart enough to go to Stanford,
Bill and Mary's a pretty smart school. I think he's pretty good. William Mary is a good school, so that's not like that.
Yeah.
But in terms of now, do you go to a lot of games? What do you normally do?
Yeah, I mean it's tough now because back then it was a different venue.
Oh,
right?
definitely. I loved Rosenblatt.
Now it's like they even want to go in the stadium because there's so much going on.
Sure.
And there's the parties, and then kind of you get in, and it's like it's kind of like the Husker football games, where you get there and you're like, okay, now do I even want to go in the stadium?
It's a 7-hour experience.
Yeah.
From the beginning to the end, it's literally 7 hours of your day.
Yeah,
and you're a busy man, so I understand that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's great from our downtown office. You get in there, and I think it's great for adults at night. My wife's been there a few times. And, but it's great for kids too. I got a teenage son, and all the stuff that goes on. I mean, it's just it's a lot of fun, good family fun, but also, like I said, if you want to have a good time, I got a lot of friends from LSU. A shout out to my friend Digger Earls from LaBorde Earls. They're an injury from there in Louisiana, and Digger, him and his whole crew were going to come up for this, and unfortunately some things didn't happen, but we always like to meet with them and talk strategy and stuff. But those guys are out of Lafayette, and they're also in they're huge fans. And they love anything Tigers, man.
I believe it. I've seen it before.
So who's going to win it all, and why? This weekend has been crazy. It's been fun to watch, but I want to know personally, who do you think is going to win it all, and why?
I guess I have to say LSU, right?
I knew you was going to say it.
I think whoever wins tonight, I believe, wins it. And now LSU have to beat Wake twice, but I think if LSU wins tonight, they do that. I think if Wake wins, I think Wake wins it.
Yeah, I
These
think
two teams are the best teams.
Yeah, and then Wake is a great story.
They are
too.
great
I mean,
story.
it's but they came in number one. They got the curse of the number one, but
Since
it's been a long
99,
time.
It's also the smallest division. Power 5 Division 1 campus. It's only like 4,500 kids. It's a small school.
I think about Hunter Salas when you say that.
We're going there, no doubt about it. Your firm has done so many great things for veterans. Kind of give us your background with the military and why it's important for you guys
for our
to do
new
what
listeners.
you do.
Yeah. So I mean, my father's a Vietnam veteran. I came back and he built the firm, and one of the things he noticed is that we weren't taking care of our veterans.
Oh yeah.
And he would have issues whether it was a divorce or a veteran was involved in a criminal activity that was related to his post-traumatic stress. And no one was helping him. And they didn't even call it post-traumatic stress. It's sort of back in the early 70s. They called it shell shock.
Exactly.
Nobody knew what it was.
Shell shock. That's where it came
That's
from.
what they called it.
That's what they called it.
Hey,
And so that's, I got involved. I was, like I said, grew up in a military family. Both of my brothers served, and I was at William & Mary playing football, and I got injured. And I couldn't have contact for a while, and I was sitting out for a season, and I said, I still have a lot left in me. I want a challenge. And so I thought, I want to become an airborne ranger. That's what I want to do.
Okay.
And so that's what I signed up, became an infantry officer, got airborne and ranger qualified, and had a great time. I was in Bosnia in '99 when we started bombing Kosovo, and I thought, okay, this is it. This is the big one.
Right.
And then nothing. And then it was like, okay, this is peacekeeping mission now. And so I thought, oh, well, nothing big is going to happen. So I got out, went to law school, and I was at Creighton, and I got in the Nebraska National Guard. They gave me a company command, and they helped pay for law school.
Awesome.
Nice.
And then I got to the point where, as a new lawyer, company commander, I was like, man, this is too much. So I went to my boss, battalion commander. I said, my obligation is up. I said, so I'm going to resign my commission and move on. He said, no, you're not. Your company has been activated. You're taking them to Iraq in 6 months.
Wow.
So we went to Iraq in 2005. It was a great experience.
That's what you're trained for, though. That's what you
we're
go to
trained
airborne
for.
school for.
Yeah. Great experience, great people, and I came back, and then they kept promoting me, and I retired as lieutenant colonel. My last job, I got to run the officer and warrant officer candidate school program.
Nice.
So you get to coach young men and women who want to become officers. It's kind of like it's like sports, right? Where you want to be challenged, and look, they got to be physically fit, they got to be smart, and it's if you want the best team, you take the best players. And there's a lot of I think there's from playing college football and not being good to understanding like, hey, if you're not good enough, that's your fault. Like it's not the coach's fault for not playing you. It's your fault.
You got to put the work in.
You gotta make it so the coach has to put you in. And I mean, it's no different in the military or even the civilian world where the best players play, and people like to talk about, well, our company's like a family. But I will tell you, the best companies run like sports teams. Every year you're not going to have the same players, and the best players play. You want the best athlete carrying the rock.
It's a meritocracy. You earn what you get, and then you move on if you don't earn it.
Absolutely.
Makes plenty of sense.
How does your kids take on the mindset and passion that you got to be a part of what you're trying to build?
My children? I mean, it's interesting. My son played soccer and all the sports early. He really got into skateboarding. He's into mountain biking, and so
it's a growing sport. It really is.
So it's
in the Olympics now. Going to the Olympics. Bombing the Olympics. Yeah.
And my daughter was a figure skater growing up, and fighting for ice
that's
time.
Expensive right there.
And the hockey players get the ice, and the
they do.
figure skaters want the ice.
4 o'clock in the morning.
So early mornings, a lot of it was. And then she ended up running track at West Side. So she, and now she's headed off to UNL this year. So
awesome.
That's nice.
But as far as, I think that they understand the importance of being competitive, and they understand the importance of serving their community, just like the military. And I think that's the great thing about the sports community, especially in Omaha and Lincoln, where the athletes give back, they serve the community. And it's, it's a reciprocating relationship where, we go out and support them, but obviously they come back and support us and us, us former athletes, we get to see the young athletes doing great things on and off the field. And that's really inspiring.
Right. John Berry Jr. joining us from Berry Law. You did that great thing last year with Creighton and saluting those veterans at each game. You guys going to continue to do that?
Yeah, we plan to continue to do that. For as long as we can. I think those stories need to be told.
Definitely.
We need to honor those brave men and women. And it's great when they get to bring their families there, because sometimes the families don't know the stories. And then some of us as veterans, we don't like to. When we get around other veterans, we love to tell stories, but around the family, we got to keep it age appropriate. And there's things that happen that kids shouldn't hear about.
No doubt.
So I've worked with a couple different organizations that help veterans get acclimated back into the world. And obviously suicide's a huge part of it. I know you've done some things to help battle military suicide. Can you kind of talk a little bit about some of that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, there's great programs out there like TAPS, which provides assistance to soldiers and families, especially after a death, and that's tough. But yeah, I mean, I have lost 3 soldiers to suicide since I got out, and it's tough. And so we do some things. Right now, I'm finishing up my book called Veteran Led, and we're launching the Veteran Led podcast to really talk about veterans develop the skills to go on and do great things. And then what happens is you get done, right? And the mission's gone, the team is gone. And then, whether it's substance abuse or other issues that come up, a lot of times that can consume the veteran. And so what I'm trying to do is get that message out there that you have the basic skills. Heck, anybody that went through basic training knows, hey, situational awareness, right? Learn how to hurry up and wait. The buddy system, right? There's all sorts of things that we've learned that I use in our company that have made a lot of our veterans successful. And we're about 120 team members, and about 35 of those are veterans and from all branches. And so we've built that culture where it's like, it's okay to lean on somebody. It's okay to ask for help, but you know what? Excellence is the standard. And sometimes when you set those high standards, people that are suffering, they stop thinking about themselves and they start thinking about the standard and the team. And that's, that's the
you kind of got something to live for when you put it into the team instead of yourself.
When you start thinking about yourself, life sucks. But when you start thinking about the team, and then it's not about you. And when you start giving back to the team or the community, I mean, I think that's where we really start feeling good about ourselves. And we don't have time to, stop and mope, and I don't know if you guys saw Arnold's Netflix.
I watched a little bit of it.
But it's like, you know what? Like, hey, life is tough and you're going to suck at things for a while. But, he went bodybuilding. Masters it. Acting, masters it. And then he gets into politics, and everyone, they said, you're not good enough. And I think, and he had bad days, and nothing was perfect, but he had a team, and he said, look, never say I was a self-made man, because I always had a team of people around me. And if you want a team, it's on you to find your team, find your tribe, and provide value.
Nothing happens smoothly, by the way. You got to agitate. You got to agitate to make beer. You got to agitate to make bread, and even to grow, you've got to till the field before something goes.
What I was about to ask.
You got to have a little bit of agitation.
I was going to ask, what's that process like, or what type of resources are there for the vets that get out, like programs that can help them cope or what type of programs do you see yourself putting in place where they can transition with available teammates to lean on and things like that,
There's actually, first of all, the VA has done a great job.
Doing better.
For the OIF and OIF veterans, when I came back, there was a transition clinic. And so they actually help do that stuff. Most military bases now do a much better job of letting veterans know what's available. But there's also this awesome plan, and I'm embarrassed I haven't taken advantage of it, but it's called Skill Bridge, where a service member who is leaving active duty for their first 6 months, they will pay the salary. So the employer doesn't have to pay them. And so it's I'm stupid for not.
That's a great idea.
But because we love hiring veterans. But it's also a try it before you buy it for them and for us. Hey, I want to try this new skill, and if they don't like it, and then for us, it's we lose some training time, but I think that's great. But no, there's a lot of resources through the VA in Lincoln and Omaha. There's the Vet Center you've probably heard of in there in almost every major city. There's county veteran service officers in every single county who can help veterans file disability claims, help them get their GI Bill, and do those other things. So there are a ton of resources out there. I think the key is finding them and making sure that veterans are aware that they're out there, because we're not publicizing those a lot. And so it's always a veteran knows a veteran, and that's how you get there. And a lot of times we get contacted by the spouse. Hey, my husband needs help. And it's and he's too proud to ask. And then they come and say, well, would you talk to him about filing for VA benefits, or would you talk to him about getting into this program? But the key is not just the benefits, it's also getting the medical help. And the families suffer too, right? I mean, when one family member has a disability and the other family members are responsible for the mobility of that family member, or if it's PTSD or a mental health condition, they got to deal with that.
For sure.
That's why things like the American Legion. You join that, it puts you in a team again. They do buddy calls on the weekend to make sure everybody's feeling good. That kind of thing. Moving veterans forwards out of Papillion. They've over almost 2,000 soldiers, they have transitioned from the military to civilian life. So there's a lot of groups out there, like you mentioned. There's stuff to be helped. You just got to go out there and look, And then when they offer you the help, take it. Because I think that's the hardest thing. A lot of former soldiers, I don't think, want to even ask for the help. They want to do it themselves. But you got to take the help.
Yeah, and it's there, and you're right. Those service organizations are great. They just need to get on social media because that's what because that's I want to see more of the DAV, the American Legion. I want to VFW. I want to see them on social because that's where veterans are finding out about stuff. And there's a sergeant major I served with in Iraq. His name's Leon Haith, and he's leading the 50-mile march this year from Lincoln to Omaha.
I did it last year.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I did it last year. It was great.
Do it again?
I'm hoping to. I had knee replacement in December, and so I'm working my way back up to it. Yeah, I plan on it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And I shot the whole thing. I had 4 cameras. I shot the whole thing. I made a 10-minute video out of it. You can find it on YouTube. It's one of the most glorifying things, walking up that last hill in La Vista with everybody cheering, knowing that you accomplished something with 59 other people. It was incredible.
That's big time.
Yeah,
awesome.
It was incredible.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So that's gonna be great. Yeah.
I think the qualifier's coming up. I got a text.
The other one. We've had a couple of them already. Yeah. Luckily, I'm grandfathered in from last year, and so I can be able to do it. But it's a 15-mile qualifier, 5-mile stop, get reset, 5-mile stop, get reset. Yeah. And finish it. Yeah. So,
awesome.
Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah. If you can do it, I know how busy you are. If you can do it, again, you've been through a lot in your military career. This is different, but everybody I talked to, whether it was guys who were former generals down to, like, I was a specialist when I got out, all of them felt the same way at the end, that it was one of the most glorifying things they ever did. So, and we're raising a ton of money.
You just walk for 22 hours. That's all it is.
Yeah. It's not that bad. Tell us about the book and the podcast and stuff before you go.
Yeah. So, we hope to have that. Unfortunately, I did the book through Scribe, which is going through some
it's
problems
tough.
right now. But yeah, so it's really about the 3 phases that we learn through the military. Number 1 is the survive phase, the basic training, the basic skills. The thrive phase, where we learn to work as a team together.
Right.
And then the dominate, which is the organizational phase. Now, when you're in the military, and you know this, like you think big army is stupid, the military is dumb. But then as we've grown as an organization, I'm like, man, they do some brilliant. Some of that stuff was brilliant. And as bureaucratic as it seemed at the time, organizationally, our military is very smart, which makes it the greatest fighting force in the history of the world. So taking those lessons and saying, you know what, if you're a veteran who's a CEO, a founder, a vetrepreneur, you want to be a business owner, you want to know, you already have the skills. Or if you're working in there and you're struggling, here are the skills. Let me show you the military situation, compare it to a civilian situation, and then let's talk, why this skill that you have is so important. But it's, I think the veterans undersell themselves. You have the skills. You've proven yourself. Like, just go out there and do it, and don't get so intimidated by it. It's everything new. Like Arnold, right? It's something new, and you're not going to be great at it at the beginning. But if you understand you have the skills, you can then hone those skills to become great.
Right.
So when the podcast going to start? Do you know?
We're
working on it.
We're working on it. The goal is December, December 31st. But I think we might be launching sooner. So I'll say December 31st.
Well, we'll look for it. That's awesome. And the book as well. John, hey, thanks. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thanks for coming on again. Thank you. Of course, as well. Thanks a lot, John. We appreciate it. Before we wrap this whole thing up, because the draft is on Thursday.
Yeah.
Right. And we can talk more about it tomorrow.
Yeah, let's talk about it tomorrow.
We'll talk about it tomorrow. But I just want to say this. It's so funny how intense I was about the NBA draft.
Yeah.
For so many years. And then I was always wondering why I am not as I used to be. Probably 5 of the top 10 guys I've never seen playing a game.
Well, let me tell you something about 2 of them.
Because they're from France. They played in the elite whatever, or they played in the G League. It used to be everybody that was in the draft, aside from a couple, we saw play college. Now you can't.
Yeah. So I'll tell you this. And like I said, we'll talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah.
2 of them I coached against.
Oh, really?
Last summer in the TBT.
Oh, nice.
Man, so we played remember you said the elite? We played the overtime elite team.
That's the Thompson twins.
Amin and Azura Thompson.
Yeah, the Thompson twins.
You thought Zion Williamson had hops.
Really?
I seen a dunk the first play of the game that almost made me react like I was a fan.
Really?
In my team, in my players. It was like, whoa.
Which one of them?
I don't know. They twins.
They twins.
I think it was
one of them did it. Yeah.
One of them did it, and it was a tomahawk dunk like it was practice.
Nice. There is an athlete in this draft that's going to top 10. The second French guy. It's Bilal Koulibaly.
Okay.
Watched his tape today just to kind of get ready for this.
I will.
My goodness. His arms reach his ankles, and he's like 6'7", whatever, but he's 99% in terms of the workout, the athleticism.
What's Buddy's name from Villanova, the freshman?
Whitmore. We talked about him when we were watching him play.
When we watched him play,
in New York.
We said he's gonna go top.
Yep, he's definitely.
So I'm excited about
We'll do that.
We'll
talk about more of that tomorrow.
Sure.
Do you know who's on the show tomorrow, Phil? We're gonna just do this on the fly.
We need to run that boxing back. That's who needs to be on the show tomorrow.
Well, we'll definitely, of course, we'll cover the College World Series, of course, tomorrow, because it could be tomorrow, no games.
Yeah.
Right? Because Florida won. Is that right? Florida won earlier. And then if Wake win tonight over LSU, there's no games tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then the series will start. But if LSU wins tonight, then they play Wake Forest again tomorrow. And I'm sure they're going to bring back their best pitcher tomorrow if it all goes like they hope it will. So
Wake Forest wins it all.
I think coming in,
no, I'm playing.
Coming in, I said, despite the number one jinx, they're the best team.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, they got the pitching, they got depth, they can hit the ball, they can do all that stuff.
For sure.
Again, thank you very much. The King, Val Elvis, the King, producing the show. Tony Boone for coming in. We appreciate him as well.
Run that back, Tony.
Talk some more. We'll do some more boxing talk. And of course, John Barry Jr. for coming in as well from the law firm. Thank you very much to our executive producer,
Phil McClain.
I
got it. He wasn't looking.
Maddie was here. I was waiting for him to look up so I could look when I call him the executive producer. And then Maddie, of course, social media stuff as well. She's at the game now.
Hey, it's been great today. It's Josh Jones on behalf of myself and Mike here. Here's how we do it.